Hey chess lovers, I hope you're all doing well and feeling happy. Today, we're diving into the exciting match between Magnus Carslen and Shant Sargsyan. In this game, Magnus recorded two brilliant moves. But first, don't forget to like and subscribe to keep me motivated to share more chess analyses with you. Are you curious about their game? Let's get into the review. Magnus played as white while Shant took black. The game kicked off with white moving knight to c3 and black responding with knight to c6. Magnus chose a flexible opening with knight to c3, commonly known as the Vienna game or a preparation for a closed system. Shant countered with knight to c6, preparing to control the center. Next, white pushed pawn to d4, and black responded with pawn to d5. Magnus jumped straight in with pawn to d4, aiming to control the center. Shant wasn't backing down and challenged immediately with pawn to d5, making it look like we were heading into a semi-close game. Then, white advanced pawn to e5. This move is interesting because Magnus directly disturbs black by putting pressure on the e5 pawn, eyeing full control of the center and creating space for himself. This definitely makes the game more aggressive and sharp. Shant responded by capturing the e4 pawn. This is an active move, trying to seize the initiative to gain material and create tension in the center. Magnus didn't react immediately to the e4 pawn. Instead, he developed his bishop to f4. This is a smart move, as it activates the bishop and puts pressure on the knight at c6, preparing for long-term tactics that could be dangerous for his opponent. The game continued with black moving knight to f6, strengthening control over the e4 pawn and getting ready to develop the bishop or queen. Magnus then attacked again with pawn to d5, pushing the knight at c6 away. This move is highly effective because it stops black from developing freely. The pawn at d5 could open paths for further attacks. Shant decided not to retreat and instead advanced to b4 to threaten c2 in the upcoming moves. This is an aggressive step that could create tactical potential, but it also comes with some risks as the knight moves further from the center. Magnus then bishop to c4 adds support to the pawn at d5. This is a strategic move that bolsters the d5 pawn. It's a strong move because the bishop at c4 controls important diagonals, including the weak f7 square in black's defense. By supporting the d5 pawn, Magnus strengthens his position and pressures black, forcing Shant to act quickly to avoid losing control in the center. However, Shant responded with pawn to g6. This move is rated as a less favorable option because pushing the pawn to g6 opens holes around the black king, especially on the dark squares at f6 and h6. This could become a target for future attacks, particularly if Magnus develops his bishop to g5 or the queen approaches the black king. At this point, Magnus controls the center with his d5 pawn and c4 bishop. Black should focus on defending the center or further developing instead of making moves like g6 that don't directly resolve the pressure in the middle. Black had better options, like moving the bishop to g7 or playing pawn to e6 to challenge the d5 pawn. Such moves would help black improve their position rather than weaken their pawn structure. Magnus continued the game with pawn to a3, pushing the knight at b4 away. Shant responded to the threat by moving the knight to a6. Magnus then played pawn to f3, offering a pawn exchange. However, Shant declined the exchange and chose to move his pawn to e3 instead. This was a mistake because it left the e3 pawn unprotected. Magnus followed up with queen to d3 to open up movement for his queen and protect his bishop at c4. Here, Magnus ignored the chance to capture Shant's pawn on e3 with his bishop. Let's discuss this. Magnus opted for queen to d3, which has several strategic goals. This move allows the white queen to be more flexible, ready to support an attack in the center or the king's side while protecting the bishop at c4. Magnus is ramping up pressure along the c4, f7 diagonal, especially since his bishop plays a crucial role in controlling that vital area. But interestingly, Magnus passed up the opportunity to directly capture the e3 pawn with his bishop. Why did he let that chance slip? Magnus might be avoiding the capture to maintain a more solid and sustainable position. By keeping his bishop on c4, he can keep applying pressure toward the center and f7. If he had taken the e3 pawn, his bishop might be less effective because the pawn at f2 would be exposed. Shant continued with bishop to g7, performing a fianchetto. The bishop on g7 controls the long diagonal from a1 to h8, strengthening the defense on the king's side. In this case, Shant aimed to solidify his defense while looking for counterattack opportunities. The fianchetto move is often played to maximize the bishop's potential and open up the pathway for castling on the king's side. However, this move also has potential weaknesses for Shant, as the black pawn on e3 remains weak and vulnerable to attack, especially with the white queen already active at d3 and ready to strike. Shant would struggle to defend this pawn in the long term. With the bishop on g7, Shant loses momentum in challenging Magnus' control in the center of the board, especially with the d5 pawn still strong and protected. The game continued with Magnus castling long while Shant opted for short castling. The purpose of Shant's fianchetto is clear: to strengthen the king's protection, with the next move being short castling. Magnus continued with queen, capturing the e3 pawn. This pawn, now a weak point in Shant's position, is seized by Magnus, giving him a material advantage and opening up an attack path on the black side. With the queen on e3, Magnus places his piece in the center of the board, granting him greater flexibility and control to attack or pressure black's defenses. Shant, unfortunately, made an inaccurate move with pawn to b6, which opens up potential new weaknesses on the black queen side. Shant should have moved his bishop to d7 to develop his currently stuck bishop on c8, which hadn't yet joined the game. The game continued with Magnus playing knight to e2 to support further attacks, especially with pawns on the king's side potentially pushing forward. Shant responded with bishop to b7 to occupy the long diagonal, putting pressure on the white pawn at d5 and strengthening control over the center area. Magnus then pushed pawn to h4, signaling his intent to attack on the king's side, particularly opening up paths to push pawns further to h5. Shant played knight to c5. After being less active on a6, the knight on c5 is now much more active, controlling important squares and potentially supporting attacks or defenses. Magnus kept up the pressure with a pawn push to h5. This aggressive move shows the h5 pawn increasingly tightening the space for black on the king's side, opening possibilities for Magnus to penetrate black's defenses. Shant responded with rook to e8, activating his rook in the center, but this might be a bit slow in responding to the immediate threats on the king's side. Magnus was gaining even more dominance in the game with pawn h5 capturing the g6 pawn, opening the vital h-file. Shant responded with pawn h7 capturing the g6 pawn, but this resulted in Magnus' rook taking control of the h-file, putting immense pressure on the increasingly weak black defenses. Magnus continued to press with bishop to h6, offering a bishop exchange that would further weaken black's defense. Shant chose to retreat and declined the exchange with bishop to h8, but this move left his bishop very passive and further trapped the black king in the corner, giving Magnus full control of the h-file. Magnus continued his attack with knight to g3, increasing pressure on the king's side. Shant tried to defend with pawn to a6, but this move didn't address the growing threats. Then, Magnus made a brilliant move with bishop to f8, an incredible sacrifice to give space for the white queen to enter h6 and corner the black king. This move marked the peak of Magnus' strategy to seal his victory. Shant decided to accept Magnus' bishop sacrifice with rook to f8, but this was an inaccurate move. A better choice would have been knight to h5, which would have limited Magnus' rook control over the h-file and prevented the white queen from invading h6, thereby reducing pressure on the black king. By accepting the sacrifice, Shant inadvertently opened up an attack path for Magnus. Magnus continued with another brilliant move, sacrificing his rook on h8. Shant accepted the sacrifice with the king capturing the rook. Magnus immediately applied greater pressure with a check from the queen on h6, forcing the black king to move to g8. Magnus then moved his rook to h1, supporting the queen's attack and ready for another check. Shant tried to hold on with knight to h5, blocking Magnus' rook, but Magnus swiftly captured the knight. Shant responded by capturing Magnus' rook on h5 with a pawn. In the next move, Magnus moved his knight to f5, setting up a checkmate on g7 with his queen. Shant attempted to protect g7 with knight to f6, but this move was futile, as the knight on e6 was immediately captured by the white pawn. At move 24, Shant resigned as there was no longer a way to protect his king from the inevitable checkmate. As we wrap up this thrilling chess match between Magnus Carlsen and Shant Sargsyan, let's take a moment to reflect on some key lessons we can learn from their game. First and foremost, flexibility in opening moves is crucial. Magnus' choice to move his knight to c3 showcases the importance of a flexible opening strategy. It allows players to adapt based on their opponent's responses, reminding us that being open to various paths can lead to greater opportunities. Next, we see that controlling the center is vital. Both players demonstrated that central control is essential for gaining positional advantage. Magnus' aggressive pawn push underscores how seizing central territory can set the stage for a stronger game. Additionally, this match highlights the need for active piece development. Shant's passive play, particularly with his bishop stuck on c8, illustrates the dangers of neglecting piece development. Failing to activate your pieces can result in missed chances and give your opponent the upper hand. Aggression and initiative are also key themes in this match. Magnus' bold maneuvers, including his sacrifices, reflect the power of taking the initiative in chess. An aggressive approach can create threats that force your opponent to react, often leading to mistakes. Moreover, we can't overlook the importance of detecting tactical opportunities. Magnus' ability to make strategic sacrifices ultimately secured him a decisive advantage. This teaches us that sometimes taking risks can yield significant rewards. Lastly, the match serves as a reminder of the value of adaptability in strategy. Shant's missed opportunity to move his bishop to d7 shows that players must be ready to adjust their strategies based on the ever-evolving board situation. In conclusion, this game is a powerful reminder that in chess, just like in life, a combination of flexibility, control, and courage can lead to success. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced player, these lessons can guide you on your own chess journey. Thank you for joining us on this exciting journey through the chess match between Magnus Carlsen and Shant Sargsyan. We hope you enjoyed the analysis and picked up some valuable lessons along the way. If you found this video insightful, please give us a thumbs up and share it with your fellow chess enthusiasts. Your support means the world to us and helps us create more engaging content for you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. We have plenty more exciting matches, strategies, and chess tips coming your way. Keep practicing, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next video. Happy playing!